Last year you painted this mural. Can you tell me a bit about how that came about?
Well, what happened was Tony Goldman came to my show Status Factory in New York City, and I had a big painting there of the Hulkboy. So he liked the Hulkboy a lot, and instead of just recreating the painting, I did the Hulkboy, and then the rest of the stuff I did here, and I didn't know what I was going to do. But as I painted during the day, the shadows of the trees cast weird shadows, so I did a lot of patterning stuff that followed the shadows as they progressed during the day, so that the shadows at different parts of the day become part of the big piece. So half is kind of like my characters, and the other half is really just about this exact environment that it's in.
And like you're sat on a rock here, which forms a part of the image when you move back. I mean,
right, when you stand by the other rocks and you see it, this rock blends into the mural and becomes part of the mural.
How long have you been involved in street art in Miami? When was the first piece you did in Miami?
I did some smaller pieces a few years ago, but this is my first really big, spectacular kind of piece.
It seems to be an explosion of street art in the Wynwood area. Why is Miami attracting that at the moment?
This project and the Wynwood Walls and Primary Flight started doing murals in conjunction with Art Basel, and it just became a really big deal. And then every year it gets bigger because people come here, they see this, either they come back the next year wanting to paint their own murals, or they try to take the same thing back to their own city and recreate it there.
And in terms of Wynwood Walls, do you know how many new murals there are this year? There seems to be a lot of activity.
There's probably new murals since we've had this conversation. It's everywhere you look, somebody's painting a new mural. It's crazy.
And who has the say in what's painted over or what stays?
Well, I think Tony Goldman is curating, but I'm not sure. I think originally Jeffrey Deitch was, but I think Tony's doing it now. But you know, I'm not the authority on that. But yeah, it was surprising. Yeah, there were a couple of weak murals that got painted over, and there were some blank spots that got painted. But
natural law, I suppose.
I mean, at this point, he has probably the most famous artist in the world with murals here, so it's like a museum show or something.
Street art has its roots in graffiti, which is what's seen by some as vandalism, whereas it seems here it's almost regenerating the area. What would you say about street art's position nowadays?
Well, I think with graffiti, because it emerged out of kind of gang culture and tagging and just kind of marking your territory, and it was, its practitioners were not, the original practitioners weren't artists. Later, some of the greatest artists ever, like Crash or Days or Phase 2, Lady Pink, all those people came out of that culture, and they made it into art, but it still had the baggage of being other things besides art. And I think when it was time for graffiti to come back, it had to come back as a rebrand. And also there have been other people, I think Keith Haring, Kenny Sharp, Banksy, Swoon, all these other people who weren't really writing their name. They were just making art pieces on the street, and a lot of them were like very site-specific. And so it was a different thing, and it was a different time, but also it was that same spirit. But I think it just needed to be rebranded so it wasn't associated with the criminal element.
And what do you say about street art, moving aside museums? LA Mocha's recent big show on the streets, and a lot of gallery shows, Swoon at ICA Boston.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say about the move of street art into the gallery? Is it killing it?
Well, I think that the practitioners of street art are artists, so most of them have went to graduate art school, and so they've always dealt with galleries, so I don't think it's very weird at all for them to be in galleries any more than it was weird for Rauschenberg to be in a gallery after doing the windows on 57th Street.
And do you have any museum shows in the pipeline yourself?
Let me think. Not museum, no.
The gallery shows, can you tell me about, or any exhibitions?
Yeah, next year I do, I have a show in Beijing, Singapore, Italy, and Sweden, and then at the end of the year, New York.